The European Commission has proposed a level that it thinks gas prices may be capped at this winter. Meeting in Brussels, EU chiefs have suggested the cost of gas should not rise over $282 per megawatt hour.
Ministers are meeting in Brussels to discuss ways of avoiding an energy crisis. Months of talks have been held up by disagreements over whether price controls are needed.
Well, let's talk to our correspondent, Rosie Burchard, who's watching events for us in Brussels. Rosie, what exactly has been announced?
Well, Jaime, this comes after months of disagreements among EU member states on whether, when, how and if to cap gas prices. And what the European Commission, which is the bloc's executive, has now unveiled is a proposal for what it dubs a market correction mechanism. Now, to break that down, this is a gas price cap of sorts, but it's a cap that can only kick in certain extreme conditions. So the European Commission says that if prices for month-ahead gas transactions on the main European gas exchange, known as the Dutch TTF, reach for 2 weeks consistently a price of more than €275 per megawatt hour, and if that price exceeds significantly prices elsewhere in the global market, so essentially if we see a jump in European markets which is not mirrored elsewhere in the world, well then a price cap can kick in. It can kick in automatically under these proposals, and it could also be released automatically, but the European Commission has also been clear they do not see this as a silver bullet. It's not something which will be able to immediately drive down prices, but rather something to be used as a method of last resort. Now, the European Commissioner for Energy, Kadri Simpson, was just speaking to press. She said that this is a powerful tool within the European Commission's toolbox, which it's been lacking so far, as it's seen extreme market volatility over the last few months of this year.
Rosie, that's the big picture stuff. What does this look like for customers on a domestic price basis?
Well, let's start by casting our minds back to August. That was when prices on the main European gas exchange reached an all-time high, more than €320 per megawatt hour. Just to put that in context, that is around a tenfold increase compared to the first half of 2021. Now, since then, prices have cooled significantly, now to around about €116 within that same framework. But that kind of volatility is what the Commission is trying to avoid here. So this plan is to curb extreme prices, so those kind of conditions we saw in August. It's not about trying to lower everyday prices. There, the Commission has other plans in place, for example, binding targets for member states to try and reduce gas demand. We've seen, for example, lights in public buildings dim, public swimming pools in Germany lowering their temperatures, and some EU member states capping the levels at which central heating or air conditioning systems should be used. So those are some of the measures in the longer term to try and drive down prices, of course, as consumers and businesses across this bloc struggle with prices which, despite having come down since August, still remain high. This particular mechanism unveiled today, all about trying to curb extreme price hikes.
Not everyone agrees. Some countries still opposing a cap of any sort, saying that gas sellers will simply just go elsewhere. I mean, is there any change on that?
Well, the Commission has tried to really deliver exactly on those concerns, and European Energy Commissioner Kadri Simpson really stressed that there are a whole set of what she called safeguards in place here. That is because several European countries, including Germany and the Netherlands, have been quite outspoken in their criticism of the idea of limiting prices. They fear that if a cap is set in Europe, well, gas sellers will simply divert their shipments, for example, to buyers in Asia that are willing to pay more. That's why the European Commission says it will be closely monitoring if this mechanism kicks in, and there are questions about whether it ever could kick in, given that the conditions laid out are so high. If it were to kick in, that they would be monitoring very closely to make sure there were no risks to that security of supply, but also no risk that this mechanism could drive up demand for gas in the European Union, just as, of course, EU states are trying to drive down demand. And with that in mind, they've also put in this proposal a provision under which they could immediately suspend this price cap were it to kick in and were they to be concerned about security of supply or about the market stability overall. Now, EU energy ministers will be gathering here in Brussels. They will hash out their concerns. These two camps will face each other down. On the one hand, Germany, the Netherlands and others that say any sort of market or any sort of price cap could be too risky, just as the EU tries to diversify away from Russian fossil fuels. And on the other hand, countries including Poland, Greece and Italy who say that really only some extreme market intervention will be enough here to try and shield consumers and businesses from these extreme price hikes and the extremes that they've been experiencing this year, which of course are weighing a heavy burden on European households, not least as the winter descends.
Rosie, thanks for that. Our correspondent Rosie Burchard in Brussels.
Well, let's talk now to Jaime Concha, who's an editor at Energy Intelligence. Welcome to the programme. Good to have you with us. So we heard that this proposed gas cap would be used as a last resort. What will it do, though? Will it work in this circumstance?
Hello. It should work in order to curb volatility in prices. That's basically what Brussels is aiming for, because as mentioned before, the problem in this case was that prices rose to record high levels at a moment where it seemed to be out of control. Now the problem that Brussels needs to deal with is what are the effects or even unintended consequences of capping prices in this way.
And what do you think those will be?
Well, there's a lot of different things that could happen from the technical level to the more understandable level. The way that gas prices and the gas market works in Europe is that it uses price signals based on supply and demand in order to attract gas into Europe. And by capping and intervening, having an artificial limit, an artificial ceiling to prices, if there is an extreme need for gas, that is, maybe China is asking for gas at the same time as Europe, there may be a need for prices to go above that level in order to attract gas to Europe. So that is one of the potential unintended consequences. Then there's also technical and more financial aspects to the contractual elements that govern the gas markets that also could be in jeopardy because of this implementation. So those are a lot of the things that Brussels needs to consider when implementing a measure that is so strong, basically, in a market that has never been intervened this way.
And we heard that the EU's Kadri Simpson was suggesting that this planned price cap would be used as one of the tools in the toolbox to be used in tandem with other measures. What other measures might be considered?
Well, at the moment, what the European Commission is trying to do is, in order to attract the supply that I mentioned before, in order for all countries not to do their own thing, what the European Commission is trying to do is implement something called a joint a joint voluntary procurement platform that basically is a centralized way for European countries as a whole to bargain or to trade for these supplies. That's one side of the equation. Another side of the equation is these reduction measures in order to curtail European gas demand in moments of high demand, such as winter, because the problem that we need to remember is that all of this was brought to a head because there is not enough gas to go around. So if there's not enough gas to go around, then demand for gas needs to be ensured that it's at low enough levels in order to match the amount of supplies that are in the market. So these are the two of the many measures that the European Commission is putting forward alongside the price cap.
Jaime Concha from Energy Intelligence, good to talk to you. Thank you for joining us.